This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Starting today's show is K-State Precision Agricultural economist Terry Griffin and University of Georgia engineer Glen Rains to discuss the research they'll be doing with their climate-smart 4D farm. Wichita County Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent Alan Baker continues the show as he shares what is happening in his region of the state. We're also joined by K-State Swine Extension Specialist Joel DeRouchey to remind us of the upcoming KSU Swine Day. K-State horticulturist Ward Upham completes the show by explaining what to expect once a pumpkin has been carved, how to roast the seeds, and why decorative pumpkins aren't used for making pies. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned back into Agriculture Today, and we continue our show discussing a project that's taking place between the University of Georgia and Kansas State University. And to talk about this project, we're joined by engineer at University of Georgia, Glen Rains, and K-State Precision Agricultural economist Terry Griffin. Glen, Terry, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Shelby. Glenn, I'm glad you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Glenn, starting off, talking a little bit about what is this project and how did it come about?
Sure. This is a USDA-funded project that we sent a proposal to USDA to get the funding. So it's a competitive project. We applied actually just last year and found out that we got the project in around March. So the project is actually multiple institutions and multiple disciplines. And when I found out, I let everybody know pretty quickly because it was pretty exciting to get this. It's a 4-year project and $4 million.
And this project is called the 4D Farm Project. And so what does that mean?
So the 4Ds is the digital and data-driven demonstration farm. So the 4Ds is the digital and data-driven demonstration. So the project we split it up into sort of 3 main pieces. And so one piece is the demonstration farm. And one of the overall goals is to have a working farm primarily using precision ag tools and data management tools that are commercially available. So that we can give farmers some feedback on the costs and the benefits of using those in a real situation. So we're tracking all the inputs, all the production costs, all the outputs, and can hopefully give them that information. So that's the sort of one leg of the triad. The other one is what we call emerging technology development sites, which are locations where we conduct research on cutting edge precision ag, climate smart technology that once becomes mature enough that we think it would benefit the farm, then we move it on to the demonstration farm to show farmers. So, and then the third is the data management arm, which is to collect all the data that we're generating and begin developing data processing, visualization, forecasting, prediction tools that then we can demonstrate to farmers again how they can take this data and help make better management decisions, hopefully in season. So, when and where and how much would be the optimal, say, application of fertilizers or growth management chemicals or pesticides. We'll be able to start generating that kind of information that then farmers, can make better decisions.
So Terry is part of this kind of then taking what maybe farmers are already doing or could be doing in the future and seeing where is that economic benefit or economic downfall.
Yes. So there's a wide spectrum of adoption rates across the United States for different size farms, different commodities being produced. Some farms tend to have a lot of the technologies we're talking about. Many farms have none of the technologies, and some farms in the middle, they have a portion of the technologies that are available. And we're interested in tracking the actual costs measured in dollars and cents for adoption of these technologies, utilization of the technology, data collection and utilization of the data. We're also interested in measuring the non-monetary aspects of technology adoption that would fall under economics, but it would be considered utility more so than financial profitability. And the idea is, does this technology reduce the amount of management skill required to make use of it? So it's a quality of life issue. The classic example there is automated guidance reduce the skill set required to operate a tractor, or at least it alleviates the necessity to be focused on steering straight from one end to another, and therefore the equipment operator has more free time in the cab. And the opposite of that may be on the data acquisition and utilization. If you give someone mounds and mounds of terabytes of data, that doesn't necessarily make their life better, but if they're poised to make use of it, they can capture economic benefits and dollars and cents. But they got to be poised to make use of it and have the skill set to do so. And that skill set isn't something that people are endowed with. So they're going to have to increase their human capital investments to make use of it. And so the quality of life and the human capital is something that we're interested in measuring as on these actual farms, on these smart farms.
For a lot of farms in Kansas and across the world, I'm sure in Georgia also, diversification is something really important. And so how is the 4D farm going to play into that?
So one of the things we're doing is we're integrating livestock production in with our crop rotation. So we're trying to assess sort of that diversification to improve the production by one way we're going to be looking at is how to utilize sort of cattle livestock waste to help reduce outside inputs of fertilizer, and then also utilizing the things like cover crops in the winter and in summers, summer crops as well to feed the cattle, looking at ways of increasing sort of beneficial insect populations through the cover crops, reducing reliance on outside chemicals, basically, trying to also look at this from a sustainable system. It's not just a precision ag system.
The terminology that Glenn's describing is referred to as circular economy, and this has been a thrust of the NEFA projects this go around.
And Terry, what is NEFA?
NEFA is part of the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture. It's a National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and it's a funding agency that provides resources to a lot of the research that we do at Georgia and Kansas State.
And so essentially for this 4D farm, just kind of building your own miniature farm and running a full operation to see how things are going to work?
Right. So the farm itself, one of the things that when we first looked at writing proposal is we needed to have a certain amount of acreage to have a working farm. We didn't think, research plots would do it, or even separating individual, say, crops across different landscapes. We wanted to have something that could really be said, this is how a working farm would be. So this farm is actually adjacent to the University of Georgia campus in Tifton at another college called ABAG, which is the Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College. And that's mainly it is a teaching college. So they've been utilizing the farm to teach students. And what we wanted to do is they already have a lot of precision ag on the farm. They have variable rate irrigation, soil sensors. They fly over the fields with UAVs. So they've been utilizing that information to help train students. And we are going to expand that also to train farmers, extension personnel, agribusiness consultants, and that group on the practices that we employ at that location. So it's not a huge farm. It's about 90 acres, but it is pretty representative of field size in South Georgia. We have a lot of broken up, smallish area fields broken up by forestry here. So it's very typical, be very representative for farmers to see how those practices put in place.
And thinking about farmers, what do you hope this research helps them with?
I hope it gives them information to what they need to, say, buy, or what they need to invest in, what resources they need, how to implement some of these practices and technologies on their specific farm every farm is unique, so every solution is not the same. But we'll show that this solution, and how it works and how they can potentially adopt some of these practices. We also, part of the economic assessment is to develop what we call enterprise budgets, which would help farmers like plug in numbers and come out with this is what it's going to cost me. This is sort of what I expect to get out of it. So the main thing is to demonstrate to them what these things are and what benefits they would be for them if they utilize them.
And Glenn, something important also for producers is our planet. And so hopefully this research has something to do with that as well.
Right. So a lot of this is climate smart practices. Precision ag, by definition, it helps reduce nitrogen chemical inputs by using them more efficiently. Implementing that, we also have we actually have a wetland around the part of the farm where we're looking at wetland conservation and biodiversity conservation with some of our one of our groups local here is it's Quail Unlimited. So Quail Unlimited does work to help preserve quail populations and other wildlife populations. So we're doing a lot of things like that to reduce anything that's unused and have it efficiently used on the farm.
Glenn, Terry, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today and discuss a little bit about this project that you'll be working on from the University of Georgia.
Yeah, thanks, Shelby. It's been really honored to be working with Georgia on this project. We're really excited, and we're just getting started, last month. So we got another 4 years ahead of us.
Yes, it's only just begun.
That was engineer at University of Georgia, Glen Rains, and K-State precision agricultural economist, Terry Griffin. I will link an article in today's show notes where you can read more about the 4D Farm Project. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead. You're tuned back into Agriculture Today, and we continue our show with Wichita County's Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent, Alan Baker, as he's currently in Manhattan for K-State Research and Extension's annual conference. Alan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
You bet.
Alan, as you're currently in Riley County, Wichita County is home for you, and so what is agriculture like in your area?
Well, Wichita County is predominantly wheat, corn, milo. We've got a lot of large feedlots, some small independent feeders, and so that's and grass.
Well, they're often a big topic of conversation when we talk about agriculture. And what has it been like in Wichita County?
Well, it's been a tough year. We were pretty dry coming into the summer, and then we had a wet spell for most of the month of June, and then it dried back off, and we've been dry ever since.
And we are getting a little bit of rain right now. Are you guys seeing that in Wichita County?
We are not. We've missed most of them. There's been some popcorn showers here and there, but we caught some rains late September, but other than that, it wasn't much.
And so talking just about crop production right now, where are you guys at in harvest?
Corn, I'm going to say, is probably 85, 90% done. Milo, this week, it really took off. I'm going to say by the end of the weekend, we'll be 85, 90% done with Milo also.
And for the crops, what has the yields been like in your area?
It's up and down. It's where you caught the rains. We had areas in northeastern part of the county that caught big hailstorms, so there's no yields. And then there's spots in the southwest part of the county that caught some rains that yields are average to normal or above average. So
really just a luck of the draw then in Wichita.
Definitely. It's all where you got the moisture. You
mentioned some hail, so the white combine did come through and unfortunately take out some fields.
Yes, we had two different storms. One caught the northeastern part of the county, one caught the northwestern part of the county. The first one, or the northwestern part of the county, was not as bad. It was more widespread. The one on the northeastern part of the county was a cell that started in Wallace County, angled all the way through Wichita County down to Scott and Finney County. And it was devastating. It wiped out farmsteads. It wiped crops to the ground completely.
With some of that having to hopefully still get something out of the field, was silage pretty big?
Yeah, we had a lot of corn that would have been cut for grain, cut for silage. Of course, some was never cut. It was completely annihilated. But a lot extra silage is cut this year.
Part of that, did you work with Scott County a little bit?
The neighboring agent, we talked a little bit about this and that, but marketing that silage, those feedlots, they had no problem with that. So,
have you seen your farmers really make any big changes into what they're planting?
Not necessarily. I would say rotating between milo and dryland corn. They kind of flip-flop back and forth depending on moisture, but looking a lot at planting populations, looking at the moisture there. That's the main changes.
So for producers looking at their crop production for next year, what are a few big things they're really thinking about?
Probably inputs like if they had failed crops, do they need to put fertilizer on? There again, moisture. If they have moisture in that spot come spring, are they going to plant corn? Or are they going to wait and plant milo? So just kind of a wait game.
You mentioned that you guys have a lot of feeder cattle and cattle on grass in Wichita County. And so how have those herds been doing?
For the most part, it was late grass, of course, with the rains in June, and it took off, and we had good grass for a while. Guys had reduced their herds, whether it was cow-calf or just less grass cattle, but they did pretty well. Now grass dried up, and guys are baling up stuff, so hopefully there's enough hay to get them through the winter.
And are you still seeing herd reduction, or is it really just stagnant now?
Right now, I'd say it's pretty stagnant. Guys are weaning calves, getting rid of calves, and just wintering cows now. So, I think it'll be a lot of changes come spring if we get some moisture this winter.
And so overall, as we've talked about the crops and the livestock, important things to agriculture, how are your producers doing?
I'd say for the most part, they're doing well. I've not talked to anybody that's completely down in the dumps. I mean, you have the guys that some of them did get wiped out from those hailstorms, and that's always traumatizing to them. But I'd say as a whole, Wichita County is doing pretty well.
And Alan, for Wichita County, are there any programs you're planning on doing?
Well, I do know either in Scott or Finney County, we're going to be putting on a corn school. Wichita County, I'm going to try to host a wheat fertility school, possibly a weed control school, and then if we can get something done with the Farm Bill, some Farm Bill program schools.
And if people possibly want to find some more information as times happen, where could they do that?
Best bet would be to find our website on the internet, or just call our number at the 620-375-2724. Or if you're in a neighboring county, just call your local extension agent.
Alan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us information about how Wichita County is doing.
You're welcome.
That was Wichita County's Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent, Alan Baker. You can learn more information at their website, which is Wichita.K-State.edu, or you can give them a call at 620-375-2724. I will link that information in today's show notes. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by K-State Swine Extension Specialist Joel DeRouchey as he reminds us of the upcoming Swine Day that's taking place November 16th here in Manhattan, Kansas. Joel, how does this Swine Day kick off?
We get started at 9:15 with some general welcomes and introductions, and to learn a little bit more about our department, Dr. Mike Day, our department head, will kick things off. Then for the rest of the morning, as well as in the early afternoon portion, both swine faculty and graduate students present the information that was generated this last year to help the industry and producers improve their operations and their bottom line. So we will rotate every 15 minutes with different topics, both in the animal science, the feed science, disease area as well, and to provide all that type of information throughout those given sessions. Some of those sessions in particular of interest that we've had really good response from is in formulating nursery diets. We have been doing a lot of work with acidification, or reducing the pH of those diets to allow those young pigs to digest the feed better and to get their guts in a better condition during that weaning process that we know is very stressful across any species. We also have a number of trials related to different sow research. We have a number of studies related to different mineral research, looking at how to improve the diet formulation by reducing phosphorus in particular through phytase and other formulation strategies. And then we also have some feed safety work really dealing with mitigation of potential viruses or bacteria in feed, and then also just general feed mill biosecurity as well. And then there's a whole lot of in between. We have just over 40 research reports this year. And so what our goal with those research reports is to break it down to layman's terms for our producers in the industry of how to use all that information that was generated over this last year.
And someone maybe not from K-State, but an important presenter in this program, Wayne Cast.
Yeah, Wayne has been a long-time nutritionist in the swine industry. He has held a few different roles during his career. Wayne does formulation. He works with us and our students. He actually does nutrition work for some of our Kansas producers. He resides in Missouri, and he would be one of the foremost experts in swine nutrition, not only in the U.S., but really worldwide. Wayne is a tremendous asset, and we're very fortunate for him to talk about lessons from his legacy in the swine industry as he gets closer to retirement. He's going to spend some time talking about the changes and his philosophy of not only what he's seen, but what he sees in the future, not only in the nutrition side, but in the management in the swine industry in general. So we're very fortunate to have Wayne speak as our featured presenter this year in the afternoon.
And something that's getting started in the morning, however, will be going on for most of the day is the trade show.
Yes, we were very fortunate again to have a very large industry group that supports us by bringing in tabletop displays. And so their goal is to expose their company and their newest technologies or information to all those attendees. So this event's hosted at the KSU Alumni Center, and we basically outline that facility with tabletop displays, and that really gets a great connection for our attendees with those that bring that in from our industry.
And Joel, how does the Swine Day wrap up?
Yeah, so Wayne Cast, as we just talked about, will be our last speaker. In approximately 3:30, the program wraps up for the day. And then we always have our K-State tailgate, which features Call Hall ice cream and also just gives people time to discuss anything from the day and have that fellowship at that point with producers, students, and the industry in general.
And something new and exciting that's happening with K-State Swine Day is there's an opportunity for high school students.
Yeah, for the first time, we are hosting an official student version of KSU Swine Day. It is going to be held in the same location in our KSU Alumni Center, just upstairs in the main boardroom. And what we're doing here is we're providing an opportunity for high school students interested in swine to not only be part of the regular Swine Day program, but we're going to spend specific time with them on more hands-on activities, have speakers talking about the technology, talking about careers, talking about where they can fit into the swine industry long term. They're our next wave of talent, and we want to make sure that they understand all those opportunities and yet experience the KSU Swine Day with the trade show and all the interaction with those that attend that on a yearly basis.
That was K-State Swine Extension Specialist Joel DeRouchey. You can find out more information about KSU Swine Day by going to ksuswine.org. Registration for this event before November 8th is $25. However, afterwards, it will be $50. I will link all this information in today's show notes on actoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be back with more ahead.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. It's a fact that a carved pumpkin won't last long. So when you're trying to keep a carved pumpkin in good condition for Halloween or a little beyond, now's the time to start carving. K-State horticulturist Ward Upham covers some of the basics for extending the life of a pumpkin, and he also explains why decorative pumpkins aren't used for pies. Ward, we are definitely in pumpkin season, either for Halloween or also for just decoration, a lot of uses for pumpkins. What are some of the things that we really need to keep in mind?
Well, when you're picking out your pumpkin, make sure it wasn't harvested too early. And the easy way to check that is to use your thumbnail to see if you can easily penetrate that skin. If you can, it was harvested too early and it's not going to last. It's going to rot relatively quickly.
And we know when we get to the cooler weather, that is good for pumpkins.
It is. That will help them last a little bit longer. But there are other things we can do as well. For example, applying a light spray of wax like you use on cars will help cut down on moisture loss, and that will help them last a little bit longer.
So you just rub that in?
Yeah, just spray it on, and then if you want to go ahead and shine it up, you can do that as well.
Also, when we start doing the carving, if we do that, don't expect your pumpkin to last too long.
Yeah, maybe a week. That'd be about the limit of how long it's going to last. And so you may want to buy your pumpkin earlier just so that you have a good selection. And then don't carve it until right before Halloween so you know it's not going to shrivel by the time it hasn't done its job.
Yeah, sometimes you get the nice-looking, scary phases. It starts to kind of sink in, but maybe not what you're looking for if you're going for the more decorative pumpkin.
That's right. That's right.
Also, there is the inside, and there are some things that we can do with that as well.
That's right. So a lot of people like to save the seed and then go ahead and roast them. So what you do is you pull the seed out and let it dry, separate from all those little strands, and then you can roast them on a cookie sheet for 10 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees. Now, a lot of people like to salt those. And so one of the ways to do that is just soak them in brine. And you make the brine by combining 2 tablespoons of salt for every 2 cups of water. So 2 tablespoons of salt, 2 cups of water. Add the seeds, bring to a boil, and simmer for 10 minutes. Drain, toss with a tablespoon of olive oil, and spread on a cookie sheet. And then bake at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. And then check the seeds during the last 5 minutes and remove when done.
There's probably a technical name for it, but the stringy, juicy stuff inside, anything we can do with that?
No, there really isn't. As a matter of fact, when you're talking about pumpkins, a lot of people think, well, I'll just clean that out and make a pumpkin pie out of it. Decorative pumpkins do not make good pumpkin pies. They have special pumpkins for that. They're called sugar pumpkins. And they're going to be smaller, and they're not going to be a bright orange, but they have a thicker wall. And those are what you want to use if you're going to make pumpkin pie out of pumpkins.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And if you want to try and grow a pumpkin on your own, I'm assuming that's maybe something more for the next season?
Yes, it certainly is. And the thing to keep in mind is those vines go all over the place. So you're going to have an awful lot of room if you're going to consider that. So if you still want to try that, one of the tricks is to plant a little bit later than normal. What you want to do is have those pumpkins mature fairly close to the time when you want to use them. And so normally what I tell people is to plant them about the middle of June. Normally we plant things like squash about May 10th, May 15th, right around there. So this is about a month later. That way they're going to escape a lot of the squash bug problems, as well as you're not going to have to figure out a way to store them until you're ready to use them. And so about mid-June is usually when I suggest people plant pumpkins, if they're going to plant pumpkins.
If we're talking about just for fall decoration, are there some other gourds, squashes that we can use?
You could. I mean, there are a lot of decorative squash, but a lot of people grow butternut squash instead of pumpkins because it makes a filling that is just like pumpkin pie. And a lot of people prefer it. They actually think a butternut squash pie is better than a pumpkin pie. And so that's a little bit easier than growing the sugar pumpkins because you can use those butternut squash for other things as well.
Planting dates would be about the same for something like that?
That's right. So you're planting about June 15th.
That's K-State horticulturist Ward Upham with information on keeping your pumpkin longer and growing butternut squash to use for pies. For more information, contact your local extension office. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.